Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. We are continuing to read The Tragedy of X by Ellery Queen, Act 2, Scene 4, Inspector Thume's office, Thursday, September 10th, 10:15 a.m. A large man squirmed on a chair in Inspector Thume's office at police headquarters. He toyed with a magazine, pared his nails, chewed a cigar to shreds, looked out of the window at the monotonous murky sky, and jumped to his feet as the door opened. Inspector Thume's ugly face was as dark as the weather outside. He stalked in, hurled his hat and coat on a clothes tree, and plumped into the swivel chair behind his desk, grumbling to himself. He ignored the large man shuffling before him. The inspector opened his mail, snapped orders into an inter-office communicator, dictated 2 letters to a male secretary, and only then deigned to turn the battery of his hard eyes on the uneasy man before him. "Well, Mosher, what have you to say for yourself? Before the day is over, you may be pounding a beat again." Mosher stammered. I can explain the whole thing, Chief. I was... "Talk fast, Mosher. You're talking for your job." The large man gulped. "I was on DeWitt's tail all day yesterday, like you told me to. I hung around the Exchange Club downtown all evening, saw DeWitt come out at 10:10 and pile into a cab, telling the cabbie to drive to the ferries. I got another cab and stayed on his tail. When we swung into 42nd at 8th, my cab driver got into a jam. We scrapped wheels with another buggy, and there was a hell of a fuss. I jumped out and got another cab, and we beat it like a streak down 42nd. But DeWitt's cab was lost in traffic. I knew he was heading for the ferries. So we kept on down 42nd and got to the terminal just as the boat pulled out. Had to wait a couple of minutes for the next boat. When we got to Weehawken, I beat it for the West Shore waiting room. Couldn't spot DeWitt. Got a timetable and noticed that a West Inglewood local had just pulled out. There wasn't another till after midnight. What the hell could I figure? I thought sure DeWitt made the West Inglewood train, so I hopped a bus and drove all the way out to West Inglewood. "Tough break," conceded Inspector Thume. His bellicosity had fled. "Go on, Mosher." The detective drew a long breath of relief. At that, I beat the local in. So I waited around till the train pulled in, and damned if DeWitt was on it. I didn't know what to do. Thought maybe I missed him after all, or that he'd shaken me off when I was tied up in the collision. So I called headquarters to report to you. And King downstairs said you were out on a case. Told me to stick where I was and see what happened. So I went out to DeWitt's house and hung around outside. DeWitt didn't get home till way after midnight. Must have been 3 a.m. or so. Rode up in a cab, and then Greenberg and O'Hallam showed up on his tail, and they told me about the murder on the ferry and the rest of it. All right, beat it. and take over from Greenberg and O'Hallam. A few moments after Masha hurried away, District Attorney Bruno strolled into Thume's office. His face was set in worried lines. He sank into a hard chair. Well, what happened last night? Reynolds of Hudson County got there just after you left the terminal. We went out to that rooming house with his men. Not a lead, Bruno. Ordinary sort of dump. Found some more samples of his handwriting. Did you see Frick about checking the fist on the anonymous letter with Woods' handwriting? I saw him this morning. Frick says there's no question that the anonymous letter was written by the same hand that wrote the others. That makes it Wood beyond any doubt. This kind of reminds me, there's a lot of hentai games that have really great stories, but I can't let's play those because YouTube would not be okay with like a let's play of like Corruptions of Champions 2. Like, I feel like YouTube would frown on that very much. Well, the samples I found in Woods' room were the same, too. As far as I could tell. You know, there's a new sliced sauce thing at Domino's. I haven't tried that yet. I'm going to try that. I can tell you. Here they are. You might give them to Frick just for an additional checkup. That ought to please Lane, the old coot. Thume tossed a long envelope across the desk. Bruno tucked it into his wallet. We found, continued Thume, a bottle of ink and some note paper. Relatively unimportant now that the handwritings jibe, said the district attorney wearily. I've had the samples of ink and paper checked away, and they're all the same. Good enough. Thume's paw riffled through. I feel like that should be rifled, but I don't think I've really ever heard anyone say riffled. It's one of those words, really. But it is spelled riffled. Through a bundle of papers on his desk. But I have actually heard people out loud say the word rifled through something. So, I guess that may just be an issue of modern grammatical slang and some additional reports this morning. For instance, there's one on Mike Collins. Operative gave him the works. Told him we knew of his secret visits to DeWitt. After Saturday, Collins was as nasty as usual. But he admitted visiting DeWitt, even admitted that he went after the old boy for a settlement on the dough he lost. Through Longstreet's bum stock tip. DeWitt, he said, turned him down cold, for which I can't blame the old boy. Feeling differently this morning about DeWitt, sighed Bruno. What gave you that idea? Snarled Thume. Here's another. One of the boys has found that DeWitt used Charlie Wood's car twice since Saturday. That was Mosher. He was detailed on DeWitt last night. Damn his eyes, but lost the trail when his cab smacked into somebody. Interesting, and too bad. In a way, if this man Mosher had been able to keep an eye on DeWitt all evening, things might have been different. He might actually have seen the killing. Well, right now, I'm more interested in that report on DeWitt's having used Wood's cars twice since this Saturday. Growled Thume. Has it occurred to you how Wood might have found out who killed Longstreet? He certainly didn't know it the night of the murder, or he would have said something. Bruno, this two-trip report is unimportant. This two-trip report is important. You mean, said Bruno thoughtfully, that Wood might have overheard something. Say, did Mosher find out if DeWitt was with anybody on those trips? No such luck, he was alone. Then he might have dropped something that Wood found. Thume, this will bear looking into. Bruno's face fell. If only he'd not been so scared when he wrote that note. Well, no use crying over spilt milk. Anything else? That's all I've got. Anything new on Longstreet's office correspondence? No, but I've managed to discover something interesting, replied the district attorney. Do you know, Thum, there's no trace of a Longstreet will, but I thought Cherry Brown said, looks like some of Longstreet's particularly smooth brand of oil. We've searched his office, his home, those pretty apartments he kept up, his safe deposit box, his club lockers, all the rest of it. There's simply no testamentary document. Longstreet's lawyer, that shyster Nigri, says Longstreet never made a will through him, and there you are, just rooking Lady Cherry, hey? Just like the rest of 'em. Didn't he have any relatives? No trace of kin. Thum, old boy, the disposition of Longstreet's virtually non-existent estate will be one of a fine mess. Bruno grimaced. He left no property, just a parcel of debts. His only asset was his share in DeWitt and Longstreet's brokerage business. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Of course, if DeWitt will buy out Longstreet's share, we'll have something tangible. Come in, Doc. Dr. Schilling, cloth cap perched on his dome, which everyone suspected was bald but no one had ever proved, marched into Inspector Thum's office. His eyes were red-rimmed, and his teeth with an and abstracted behind their round lenses, and he was jabbing at his teeth with an unsanitary ivory pick. Morning, gentlemen. Would you say Dr. Schilling has been up all night? Nein, you would not. He sighed himself into one of Thum's hard chairs. I didn't get out of that fancy Hudson County morgue until past 4. Got that autopsy report. Dr. Schilling extracted a long piece of paper from his breast pocket, slapped it on the desk before Thum, rested his head on the back of the chair, and was instantly asleep. His cherubic face relaxed into chubby folds of fat. His mouth popped open, toothpick still dangling, and without preliminary, he began to snore. Thum and Bruno rapidly read the neatly written report. Nothing here, mumbled Thum. The usual baloney. Hey, Doc, he roared, and Schilling's round little eyes struggled open. This isn't a flop house. Go home if you want to snooze. I'll try to keep the murders down for about 24 hours. Schilling groaned to his feet. Yeah, do that, he said, and tottered toward the door. He stopped short. The door had opened in his face, and he found Mr. Drury Lane smiling down at him. Dr. Schilling gulped, cackled an apology, and stood aside. That reminds me, I used Grok to make a couple edits. I asked Grok to make a picture of Astolfo wearing the Drury Lane outfit, and a picture of Illumi Zoldyck wearing the Drury Lane outfit. I didn't know what else, I don't know. At some point we'll get back to Umineko, but I want to finish this book, and I want to read the When Cicadas Cry book, that I'm pretty sure the author Caroline Cleveland, has never heard of Higurashi or Umineko, and has just sort of named her story When Cicadas Cry, which is also about people getting killed. So it's and detective stuff. So it's I just happened by it chance when I went to a Barnes & Noble and was looking for books. Though, granted, I was looking for S.S. Van Dyne and Ronald Knox and multiple other famous people. But they didn't have any books by any of them. I was able to find the Agatha Christie book and the Ellery Queen book. But I just, by random chance, came across the When Cicadas Cry book, which apparently was published in 2017. So, we'll see. I have completely lost where I am in this book. Okay. Dr. Schilling gaped. Right, I was talking about how I used Grok, I used AI to make pictures of Astolfo and Illumi Zoldyck wearing the outfit that Mr. Drury Lane is apparently famous for wearing. So you'll see that in a thumbnail at some point. Maybe in this video, maybe not. I keep losing where I am. Dr. Schilling gulped, cackled an apology, and stood aside. Lane stepped into the room, and the medical examiner went out, yawning mightily. Thum and Bruno rose. Bruno smiled sourly. "Come in, Mr. Lane, come in. I thought you had dematerialized last night. Where under heaven did you disappear to?" Lane folded himself into a chair, nursing his blackthorn stick between his knees. "You must expect drama from an actor, Mr. Bruno. The first principle of effective stage procedure is the dramatic exit. Unfortunately, there was nothing sinister in my vanishment. I had seen what was necessary, and there was then nothing to do but return to the sanctuary of the hamlet. Ah, Inspector, and how do you feel this gray morning?" So-so, said Thum. "What are you, Batman?" Wait, this was before Batman. Even the very first thought of a Batman in any comic had ever existed, so... Is Drury Lane partially an inspiration for Batman? I don't know. Does anyone else like reading like Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe and the Canterbury Tales and Don Quixote and the Odyssey and stuff like that? Where was I? So-so, said Thum, without enthusiasm. "Up early yourself for an old trooper, are you?" "I thought hams, excuse me, Mr. Lane. I thought actors slept until way past noon." "Unkind, Inspector." Drury Lane's fresh, clear eyes twinkled. "I am a member of the most active profession since grail chasing went out of fashion. I was out of bed at 6:30 this morning. Swam my customary 2 miles before breakfast." Appeased my always clamorous appetite, examined a new wig Quasi made yesterday, and of which he is justly proud. Why does that wig look like something Astolfo? Conferred with my director, Koropkin, and my scenic designer, Fritz Hoff. Enjoyed my voluminous mail, delved into a fascinating research of the year 1586 through 7, in connection with Shakespeare, and here it is, 10:30, a fair beginning, Inspector, to an ordinary day. Sure, said Thum, striving to speak pleasantly. "But then you retired people haven't the headaches we working people have. For instance, who killed Wood, after all? Mr. Lane, I won't ask you again about this ex-guy of yours. You know who killed Longstreet already." "Inspector Thum," muttered the actor, "do you compel me to reply in the words of Brutus? I will with patience hear, and find a time both meet to hear and answer such high things. Till then, my noble friend, chew upon this." Lane chuckled. "Have you the autopsy report on Wood's carcass?" Thum looked at Bruno, and Bruno looked at Thum, and they both laughed. Restored somehow to good humor, the inspector picked up Dr. Schilling's paper and handed it to Lane without comment. Drury Lane held it high before his eyes, studying the report with grave intentness. It was a laconic document written with scrupulosity and Germanic flourishes in ink. Occasionally, as Lane read, he stopped to close his eyes in candid concentration. The report stated that Wood had been unconscious, not dead, at the time he was thrown overboard. This, it went on, from an unmistakable signs of assault on the part of the head which had not been crushed. The theory of unconsciousness, wrote Dr. Schilling, was substantiated by the fact that a small quantity of water was present in Wood's lungs, indicating that the man had been alive for a few seconds after plunging into the water. I mean, I understand your mouth would probably close, but I mean, there's nothing muscular holding it shut either, so even if you were thrown into water, like after you're dead, wouldn't the water just sort of start filling you? Like, you have holes in your body. I keep... Look, where am I? The inference was then, continued the report, that Wood had been struck over the head with a blunt instrument, stunning him into unconsciousness, that he had been thrown overboard, had struck the water, still alive, and had in that very short period of time been crushed to death between the side of the Mohawk and the loose pilings. The report went on to state that traces of nicotine in the lungs were not abnormal, being due, in all probability, to a mild tobacco addiction. That the scar on the left leg was estimated to have been at least 20 years old. It had been an ugly, deep, curving gash. It had been rather unprofessionally treated. That the slight trace of sugar in the blood was not sufficient to have made the victim diabetic. And that there were definite evidences of alcoholism, probably induced by strong liquor addiction in a mild form. But I mean, this was the 30s. Like, wasn't everybody an alcoholic in the 30s? I don't know. Let me, if anyone listening to this was alive in the 30s, let me know. I keep losing where I am in this paper. That the body was that of a middle-aged man of rugged constitution with red hair, fingers splayed, nails irregular, indicating manual labor. That there was osseous? I'm not familiar with this word. Osseous. Evidence of a broken right wrist, which was quite old and had knit well. That there was a small mole of a birthmark variety on the left hip, a 2-year-old appendicitis scar, also evidences of a cracked rib, which had been at least 11 years old and had knit satisfactorily. That the body weighed 202 pounds and was 6 feet and a half inches tall. Drury Lane concluded his study with the document and, smiling, returned it to Inspector Thum. "Get anything out of it, Mr. Lane?" asked Bruno. "Dr. Schilling is a meticulous workman," replied Lane. "A most commendable report. It is remarkable that he was able to make such a comprehensive examination of that poor, mangled body. How are your suspicions of John DeWitt faring this morning?" "Very much interested," parried Thum. "Very much interested, Inspector." "His movements yesterday," said Bruno quickly, as if this answered the question, "are being traced." "You are not withholding anything from me, Mr. Bruno," murmured Lane, rising and settling his cape about his shoulders. "But then I'm sure you are not. Thank you, Inspector, for having sent me a clear photograph of Longstreet. It may prove useful before the curtain comes down." "Oh, that's all right," said Thum, in an instantly pleasant tone. "Look here, Mr. Lane, I think it only fair to tell you that Bruno and I both have our minds set on DeWitt." "Indeed?" Lane's gray-green eyes swept from Thum to the district attorney. Then they clouded, and he grasped his stick more firmly. "I shall leave you to your work, gentlemen. I have myself something of a crowded itinerary today." He strode across the room and turned at the door. "Let me earnestly advise you, however, to take no specific action against DeWitt at this time. We are face to face with a crucial moment, gentlemen. I say we," and he bowed, literally. "Believe me." They shook their heads in a futile sort of way as Lane closed the door gently behind him.